The human fleet emerged from jump space at the threshold gate, the last major choke point before the galaxy's core worlds. Admiral Song Hyunwoo's tactical display immediately lit up with contact warnings. The Devourer swarm was everywhere. Thousands of organic ships that looked like massive insects made of living metal and flesh. Beyond them, scattered and broken, were the remnants of the Galactic Defense Fleet. Felthran ships drifted without power. Korthian vessels tumbled through space, their crystalline hulls cracked and leaking atmosphere, and still they tried to fight by their rules, announcing their attacks to an enemy that only consumed. "Sir, we are receiving a communication from High Arbiter Velmora," reported the communication officer. Velmora's image appeared on the main screen. She looked exhausted, her form flickering unstably. "Admiral Song, thank you for coming. We have lost 60% of our forces. The swarm will breach the threshold in hours. We need coordination. We need to establish proper battle protocols with your fleet." Hyunwoo shook his head. "With respect, High Arbiter, there will be no protocols. No announcements, no rest periods, no honorable combat. We fight to destroy the enemy completely. That is the only protocol." Velmora was silent for a moment. Then she said quietly, "Do what you must." Hyunwoo turned to his fleet. "All ships engage at will. Target priority is the largest concentrations. Use everything we have." The human fleet did not announce its attacks. It simply struck. Captain Shin Dongwoo commanded the Soul's Fury into the heart of the swarm formation, weapons firing continuously. The ship's railguns, firing solid projectiles at a fraction of light speed, tore through swarm vessels that had never encountered purely kinetic weapons. Their organic armor, designed to absorb energy weapons, shattered under the physical impacts. "Deploy the nano-weapon packages," Hyunwoo ordered. Across the human fleet, missiles launched. They were not explosive warheads. Instead, they carried clouds of microscopic machines, designed by human engineers who understood biological warfare. The nanomachines infected the swarm vessels, spreading like a plague, breaking down organic material at the molecular level. The swarm tried to adapt. Vessels that had been damaged began to regenerate, but the nanomachines mutated faster than the swarm could counter them. It was evolution at artificial speed, a war of biology that humanity had learned to fight in their own laboratories and battlefields. But the swarm was learning too. Some vessels developed immunity to the nanoweapons. Others changed their tactics, swarming individual human ships in overwhelming numbers. The destroyer Gwangju was covered in swarm fighters, their organic weapons burning through its armor. The ship's captain made a decision that the aliens would never have considered. All hands abandoned ship, set reactor to overload. The crew evacuated in escape pods while the Gwangju accelerated toward the largest swarm cluster. When the reactor exploded, it took out 17 swarm vessels in a blast of nuclear fire. The aliens watching on their sensors were horrified. The human fleet simply noted the tactic and prepared to repeat it if necessary. General Kwon Jae-hyun commanded the ground forces, deployed to defend stations that the swarm had boarded. The fighting was brutal. Close-quarters combat in corridors and chambers where honorable warfare meant nothing. The swarm creatures were fast and savage, but Jae-hyun's soldiers had trained for exactly this kind of fighting. They used flamethrowers in enclosed spaces, burning the organic matter that made up the swarm creatures. They collapsed corridors behind them, trapping the enemy in sections that were then vented to space. They fought dirty, using every advantage of terrain and technology. Sergeant Choi So-hee, now a major and field surgeon, worked in conditions that would have broken most medical professionals. She performed surgery in zero gravity while the station shook from weapons fire. She used alien medical technology in ways its creators had never intended, combining it with human battlefield medicine to save lives that should have been lost. "We are holding the medical bay," she reported to Jae-hyun, "but barely. We need reinforcements." "Negative. No reinforcements available. Hold as long as you can, then fall back to secondary positions." So-hee looked at the wounded around her. Humans and aliens both, bleeding and dying together. "Sir, if we fall back, these patients die." "Then you have a choice to make, Major." So-hee looked at her medical team, then at the blast doors that held back the swarm. She made her decision. Defensive positions. "We hold here. No one gets through to these patients." Her team, armed with whatever weapons they could find, prepared to defend the medical bay. They were doctors and medics, not soldiers. But they fought like soldiers anyway because the lives behind them depended on it. The battle at Threshold Gate lasted 18 hours. It was nothing like the careful, choreographed conflicts the galaxy was used to. It was chaos and carnage, desperation and determination. Human ships used tactics that made the alien observers sick with horror. They rammed swarm vessels when they ran out of ammunition. They used nuclear weapons in close proximity to their own forces. They deployed chemical agents, biological weapons, cyber attacks, and psychological warfare, but they were winning. The swarm, for all its adaptability, had never faced an enemy that matched its ruthlessness. It had consumed civilizations that fought with honor and restraint. Humanity fought with neither. Every time the swarm adapted to a human tactic, the humans simply changed tactics. Every time it learned to counter a weapon, the humans deployed something new. Hyunwoo watched his tactical display and saw the pattern emerging. The swarm was not just adapting to human tactics. It was learning them, incorporating them, becoming more like the humans it fought. And that gave him an idea. Scan the swarm formations. Look for a central coordination node, something that controls or influences the others. His tactical officer worked quickly. Sir, there is a large vessel at the center of their formation. It is different from the others. More complex, possibly a hive mind or queen analog. That is our target, Hyunwoo said. But we cannot reach it through normal assault. The swarm will protect it too heavily. He thought for a moment, then smiled without humor. We need to make them think we are retreating. Make them chase us. The human fleet began a fighting withdrawal, appearing to flee from the swarm. The alien vessels had done the same thing countless times, retreating when damaged. But the humans were not damaged. They were baiting a trap. The swarm took the bait. Its vessels surged forward, pursuing what they thought was a broken enemy. They extended their formation, spreading out to chase multiple human ships, and in doing so they exposed their center. Now, Hyunwoo ordered. Half the human fleet reversed course, weapons hot. The other half had never actually retreated. They had circled around using the debris of destroyed ships as cover. Now they struck from both sides, converging on the central swarm vessel. The swarm tried to pull back to protect its core, but human ships blocked their path, sacrificing themselves to keep the trap closed. The Soul's Fury led the final assault, all weapons firing at the massive central vessel. Sir, we are not penetrating its armor, Dongwoo reported. Then we go through it, Hyunwoo said. Ram the target. Full speed. Dongwoo stared at him. Sir, that will destroy us. Most of the crew can evacuate first. Do it. The Soul's Fury's crew abandoned ship in a fleet of escape pods protected by other human vessels. Only Hyunwoo and a skeleton crew remained on the bridge. The ship accelerated to maximum speed directly at the swarm's heart. At the last moment, Hyunwoo activated the ship's self-destruct sequence. The Soul's Fury hit the central swarm vessel like a spear, penetrating deep into its core before exploding in a blast that tore the massive creature apart from the inside. The effect on the swarm was immediate. Without their central coordinator, the individual vessels became confused, disorganized. They began attacking each other, their coordination completely broken. The human fleet and the remnants of the galactic forces finished them off methodically. When it was over, the threshold gate was secure. The swarm was not destroyed completely, but its main force was shattered. It would be months or years before it could threaten the galaxy again, if ever. Hyunwoo sat in an escape pod watching the debris field that had been his flagship. Around him, other pods drifted, carrying the survivors. The cost had been terrible. 40% of the human fleet was destroyed or critically damaged. Thousands of soldiers were dead. Dozens of stations had been lost despite their defense, but the galaxy was saved. A communication came through. It was Velmora, her form more stable now. Admiral Song, I witnessed everything. I watched your fleet fight with a brutality I did not think possible from a civilized species. I watched you sacrifice ships, use forbidden weapons, employ tactics that violated every principle we hold dear. And I watched you save us all. Hyunwoo was too tired to feel triumph. We did what was necessary. Yes, you did. And in doing so, you showed us something we had forgotten. Sometimes civilization is a luxury that survival cannot afford. Velmora paused. The Council wishes to offer a formal apology. We were wrong to ban humanity from our affairs. We were wrong to call you barbaric. Will you accept our apology? The first news broadcasts appeared 6 hours after Daeho left the Council. They showed his ultimatum on repeat, and every time it played, the hosts laughed harder. On Vexar Prime, the avian homeworld, Morning shows played it as comedy. On Thex, the merchant world, they made songs mocking the humans. Children across the galaxy were taught a new joke. What did the humans say to the council? Nothing that mattered. Merchant Lord Thexel watched the broadcasts from his floating palace above Thex. He was enormous, even for his species. His body was covered in golden scales that he claimed proved his wealth. In the levels below his palace, 3,000 human slaves worked in his factories. Buy more, he told his chief buyer. Humans are cheap right now because everyone thinks they're leaving. When this nonsense ends, prices will rise. Buy as many as you can find. The buyer, a thin creature with too many arms, nodded. Yes, my lord. But what if they really are dangerous? Thexel laughed. It sounded like rocks falling down a mountain. Dangerous? I have owned humans for 40 years. They are weak. They are soft. They cry when you hit them. The only thing dangerous about humans is how easily they break. While Thexel laughed in the slave quarters below, a human woman named Yuna received a message on a communicator hidden in her shoe. The message had 3 words, tonight. Doc 7, ready. She showed it to the others. There were 15 humans in her work group. They had been planning this for months, but they didn't know what they were planning for. The messages had been vague. Just coordinates and times. Just instructions to be ready to move fast. Do we trust it? Asked an older man named Gite. His back was covered in scars from Thexel's punishment whips. We don't have a choice, Yuna replied. Whatever happens, it's better than staying here. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were happening. In universities where human students were barely tolerated, they packed their bags. In medical stations where human doctors worked for half the pay of aliens, they copied patient files and prepared to leave. In military outposts where humans served as cannon fodder, they quietly requisitioned supplies. The aliens noticed, but they didn't care. Humans leaving meant nothing. There would always be more humans to exploit. On a mining station called Kelos 9, Colonel Tae-sung led a team of 20 soldiers. They wore civilian clothes and carried fake identification. Their job was simple: extract all humans from this station before the timer ended. There were 200 humans on Kelos 9. Most were miners. Some were engineers. All of them were ready to leave. We have 48 hours left, Tae-sung said to his team. That means we move now. Team 1 takes the north quarter. Team 2 takes south. Team 3 secures the docking bay. If anyone asks questions, you're merchant escorts. If anyone shoots, you shoot back. His teams moved out. Within 3 hours, they had contacted every human on the station. The evacuation was scheduled for midnight. 3 ships would arrive pretending to be cargo haulers. They would load up and be gone before anyone noticed. But someone did notice. A Kilo Station security officer, a being that looked like a walking insect, saw humans moving in groups. Humans never moved in groups. They kept their heads down and stayed alone. This was unusual. He reported it to his commander. Probably just workers changing shifts, the commander said. Humans are always working. The security officer wasn't satisfied. He followed one group to the docking bay. There he saw humans loading onto ships. Not cargo, humans. He raised his weapon. Stop, what is this? Tae-sung appeared behind him. He moved so fast that the security officer didn't see him until a hand was on his weapon. We're leaving, Tae-sung said calmly. You can let us go or you can try to stop us. Choose quickly. The security officer looked at the humans. There were so many of them. And they weren't scared. They looked ready. Ready for violence if needed. He lowered his weapon. Go, I saw nothing. Smart choice, Tae-sung said. He signaled his teams and the evacuation continued. Similar scenes played out on 100 stations and 1,000 worlds. Some aliens tried to stop the humans from leaving. Those aliens learned that humans, when cornered, fought harder than anyone expected. But most aliens just watched and laughed. Good riddance to the weak species. On a research station at the edge of known space, Dr. Ji-won worked alone in her laboratory. She was a quantum physicist, one of the best humanity had ever produced. For 30 years, she had been working on a project that the council didn't know existed. They thought she studied basic particle physics. They had no idea she was building a weapon. Final calculations complete, she said to her team over a secured channel. Her team wasn't on the station. They were on 12 other stations, all doing the same work. Project Silence is ready for deployment. Confirmed, said a voice on the other end. Admiral Seung-min wants to know if you're certain it will work. Ji-won looked at her screens. Numbers and equations filled them, the result of 3 decades of work. It will work, she said. When we activate it, every ship that isn't keyed to our frequency will lose power instantly.
FTL will become impossible.
Communications will die. They'll be floating in the dark. And it can't be reversed? Not by them. The quantum entanglement is locked to human DNA signatures. Only we can turn it off. Only we can adjust it. We built a fence and we're the only ones with the key. She began packing her equipment. In 6 hours, she would leave this station forever. The aliens would find an empty lab and no clues about what she had been building. Admiral Sung-min stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Quiet Thunder. Around him, positioned in a sphere 100 light-years across, waited 500 ships. They were humanity's entire military force, plus every ship they had secretly built in the last 50 years. No one in the galaxy knew this fleet existed. Humanity had let everyone believe they only had 200 old, outdated vessels. Time? Sungmin asked. 24 hours until ultimatum expires, sir, his officer replied. And the evacuation? 92% complete. The last extraction teams report they'll be done with 18 hours to spare. Sungmin nodded. He was an old man, nearly 70. He had fought in humanity's first wars with the aliens. He had seen his friends die while the galaxy watched and did nothing. He had spent his entire life preparing for this moment. Send word to all ship commanders, he said. At hour 72, we activate Project Silence. The galaxy wanted to see what humans do when pushed to the edge. They're about to find out. Back on the council station, High Arbiter Krell couldn't sleep. His species didn't need much rest, but when they did, they entered a meditative state. Tonight, he couldn't achieve it. Something was wrong. The humans were too quiet. No protests. No begging. No last-minute diplomatic attempts. Just silence. He accessed the station's monitoring systems. He searched for human communications. There were none. He searched for human ships. Most had disappeared from tracking. He searched for human presence on council-affiliated worlds. The numbers were dropping rapidly. They're leaving, he said aloud. All of them. They're all leaving. He called an emergency council session. Only half the members bothered to attend. They didn't think humans were worth losing sleep over. The humans are evacuating from all galactic positions, Krell announced. This is coordinated. This is planned. Something is happening, so what? Vextar said. He looked tired and annoyed. Let them run back to their little worlds. We don't need them. We never needed them. You don't understand, Krell insisted. Species don't do this. Species don't just leave. Not all at once. Not this quietly. Something is coming. You're paranoid, old one, Vextar replied. The humans are scared. They made a threat they couldn't back up, and now they're running away. When their 72 hours end, nothing will happen, and we'll laugh about it for centuries. Krell wanted to argue, but he had no proof. Just a feeling. Just the memory of Daeho's calm face. On Thex in the slave quarters, Yuna and the others moved through the dark. Above them, Thexel slept in his palace, dreaming of the profits from his new human purchases. He would never wake up rich again. The humans reached Dock 7. A ship waited there, running dark with no lights. The airlock opened, and a human soldier gestured them inside. Quickly, he whispered. We have 30 minutes before the shift change. They ran onto the ship. When the last one was aboard, the airlock closed and the ship lifted off silently. By the time station security noticed it was gone, it was already jumping to FTL. Merchant Lord Thexal woke to alarms. What's happening? He demanded. The humans, my lord, his assistant said. They're all gone. Every single one. And 12 of your cargo ships are missing. Find them! Thexal roared. Find them and bring them back. They're my property. But the ships were already beyond his reach, carrying freed humans back to Earth. The timer continued counting down. 60 hours. 50 hours. 40 hours. The galaxy still didn't understand what was coming. Daeho sat in a quiet room on Earth watching the countdown. Sunja brought him tea. Any regrets? She asked. None, he said. We gave them 200 years. We begged, we pleaded. We followed their rules. They laughed at us. Now they'll learn what silence means. 24 hours remained. The countdown reached 0 at exactly Galactic Standard noon. Across 1,000 worlds, beings checked their chronometers and laughed. The human ultimatum had expired and nothing had happened. The news networks prepared their comedy segments. Comedians wrote their jokes. The galaxy breathed easy, ready to mock the humans for decades to come. Then, at 12 minutes past noon, something changed. A merchant ship called the Profiting Wind was traveling through what used to be human space near the colony of New Sol. The captain was a Vexian trader named Kextal. He was hauling spices to a mining world, a simple route he had flown 1,000 times. Humans had lived on 3 worlds along this route, but they were gone now. Fled home like frightened children. His communications officer suddenly looked up. "Captain, we've lost contact with the mining world." "Check the array," Kextal said, unconcerned. "Equipment failed sometimes. Array is fine, sir. But I'm getting no response. No traffic at all. It's like the entire system went silent." Kextal frowned. "Try the relay stations." "No response from them either, sir. No response from anything. I'm not even getting automated beacons. That's impossible." "Those beacons are the ship's lights went out. Every screen went dark. The engines died. The Profiting Wind went from flying to drifting in the space of a single heartbeat. Emergency lights flickered on, casting everything in red." "What happened?" Kextal shouted. "Report." "I don't know, sir." "Everything just stopped. Main power is gone. Backup power is failing. I can't even run a diagnostic because the computers won't." The backup lights died too. In the complete darkness, Kextal heard his crew screaming. Then even the screaming stopped as the life support systems failed. He had just enough air left to realize he was going to die, and he would never know why. Across what used to be human territory, the same thing happened to 3,000 ships. They all stopped. They all went dark. They all became tombs drifting in silence. On the council station, alarms began blaring. High Arbiter Krell rushed to the command center. Screens showed chaos. Reports flooded in from every direction. Ships disappearing. Colonies going silent. Communication blackout spreading like a disease. "What is happening?" demanded Counselor Vextar. For the first time in his life, his voice carried fear. "We don't know," replied the station commander. "A being made of flowing liquid metal. We're losing contact with everything near former human territories. It's spreading. Ships are going dark. Stations aren't responding. We sent a probe to investigate." The probe stopped transmitting the moment it entered the affected area. Krell felt something he hadn't felt in 1,000,000 years. Terror. "Get me Ambassador Deho now." "We can't, sir. Earth has gone completely silent. We can't reach them. We can't reach any human world. It's like they've vanished from the universe." On Earth, in the command center buried deep beneath the surface, President Bo-Ra watched screens showing the quantum disruption field spreading across space. Every star system humanity had ever claimed was now surrounded by an invisible wall. Nothing could get in. Nothing could get out. Nothing except what humanity allowed. "Field deployment at 100%, reported Engineer Kyung-Soo. He looked tired but satisfied. 30 years of work had just activated perfectly. All 400 systems are secured. The barrier is stable. Estimated time until galactic detection of full scope, 4 hours. "And our people?" Bo-Ra asked. "All accounted for. Every human extraction team made it home. Every human in the galaxy is now safely inside the barrier. We didn't lose a single person." Bo-Ra allowed herself a small smile. "Then we are truly alone. For the first time in 300 years, humanity is completely separate from the galaxy." "They're trying to contact us, ma'am," said a communications officer. "Thousands of messages. They're begging us to respond." "Let them beg," Bo-Ra said. "We begged for 200 years. Now it's their turn." Captain Hiram sat in her command chair aboard the Quiet Thunder, watching alien ships try to enter human space. They came in large groups, thinking strength in numbers would help. They were wrong. The moment they crossed the barrier, every system failed. Engines died. Weapons powered down. Life support began its slow countdown to 0. "Orders, Captain?" asked Minho. "Give them one chance," Hiram said. "Broadcast on all frequencies. Tell them they have 10 minutes to turn around. If they don't, they die in the dark." The message went out. Most ships turned around immediately, but some didn't believe it. Some thought it was a bluff. Those ships kept coming. Hiram watched them cross the barrier and die. She felt nothing. These were the same species that had raided human colonies for sport. The same species that had taken human children as slaves. The same species that had laughed when humanity begged for help. "Approaching vessel is turning back, Captain," Minho reported. "They're leaving the barrier zone." "Good. Perhaps they're learning." On the other side of the barrier, an alien admiral named Krellson commanded a fleet of 500 warships. He was determined to break through whatever trick the humans were using. His species, the Krellians, had weapons that could crack planets. Surely they could break through some human technology. All ships, prepare to fire on my mark, he ordered. Target the coordinates where ships have been disappearing. We'll blow a hole in whatever they've built. 500 warships fired at once. Enough energy to destroy a moon launched into the barrier zone. The weapons crossed the threshold and simply stopped. The energy dissipated harmlessly into space. Not a single shot reached its target. Impossible, Krelson whispered. Fire again! All weapons? They fired for an hour. They fired until their weapons overheated. Nothing worked. The barrier swallowed everything they threw at it. Then a ship appeared on Krelson's sensors. A human ship. It sat just outside the barrier, making no aggressive moves. Hail them, Krelson ordered. A human woman's face appeared on his screen. She was young, with a scar across her left eye. Captain Hyarim, you cannot break the barrier, Hyarim said calmly. It is based on quantum entanglement technology. Every atom of matter in the barrier zone is linked to a quantum computer on Earth. Non-human vessels entering the zone have their molecular bonds disrupted at the quantum level. Your ships don't stop working. They stop existing as functional objects. This is an act of war, Krelson shouted. No, Hiram replied. This is offense. You're the ones trying to break it down. We warned you. You laughed. Now you know we were serious. What do you want? Nothing. We want absolutely nothing from you. We will stay in our space. You will stay in yours. Try to cross the barrier again and you'll die. That's all there is to it. The screen went dark. Krelson stared at it, his mind racing. Humanity had just claimed 400 star systems and made it impossible for anyone to enter them. They had built a wall across space itself. Back on the council station, they were finally understanding the scope of what had happened. 400 star systems, gone, unreachable, and those weren't just any systems. Humanity had been smart about what they claimed. They had taken systems that controlled major trade routes, systems that held rare resources, systems that connected different parts of the galaxy. They've cut the galaxy in half, said a council member, a being that looked like a walking plant. The eastern spiral arm can't reach the western arm anymore. Not without going around, and that would add months to any journey. And they control the Kessel route, said another. That route carries 60% of all medical supplies in the galaxy. Vextar felt sick. He had laughed at the humans. He had called them weak, and they had just crippled galactic civilization in a single day. How long can they maintain this barrier? He asked. High Arbiter Krell pulled up the analysis his scientists had prepared. His hands shook as he read it. According to our best estimates, indefinitely. The quantum field is self-sustaining. Once established, it requires no additional power. They built it, activated it, and now it just exists. Forever. Unless they choose to turn it off. The room went silent. Someone had to say it, so Krell did. They're not coming back. They're gone. And they've taken a third of the galaxy with them. On Earth, President Bo-Ra addressed the human population. 50 billion people watched her speak. Today, humanity has done what we should have done centuries ago. We have separated ourselves from a galaxy that doesn't want us. We have claimed our space and we will defend it absolutely. No alien will enter our territory. No alien will exploit our people. No alien will ever laugh at us again. Some will say we are being cruel, that we are punishing the innocent along with the guilty. To them I say this. We gave them 200 years to change. They didn't. We gave them an ultimatum. They laughed. We owe them nothing. Not our labor. Not our friendship. Not our forgiveness. From this day forward, humanity stands alone, and we stand tall. The stars are silent now, but that silence is ours. We claimed it. We earned it. And we will keep it for as long as we choose. Across human space, people celebrated. For the first time in 300 years, they were truly free. Free from exploitation. Free from mockery. Free from fear. And outside the barrier, the galaxy began to collapse. 6 months had passed since the barrier appeared. The galaxy was dying. It started small. A few merchant companies went bankrupt because they couldn't reach their customers. Some mining operations shut down because they couldn't ship their ore. A handful of colonies requested emergency supplies that never arrived. The council assured everyone that this was temporary. They would find new routes. They would adapt. They were wrong. The problem was that humanity had been everywhere. For 200 years, humans had quietly become essential to galactic civilization. They didn't control the big governments or own the huge corporations, but they did everything else. They fixed the machines. They ran the supply chains. They figured out the problems no one else wanted to solve. And now they were gone. On Vexar Prime, the avian homeworld, food riots had begun. The planet imported 70% of its food from agricultural worlds in the eastern spiral arm. With the trade routes cut, those shipments stopped. At first, the government rationed what they had. Then the rations ran out. Now people were fighting in the streets over scraps. Councillor Vextar watched his world burn from his council chamber. He had tried everything. He sent ships around the barrier, but that added 3 months to the journey. The food rotted before it arrived. He tried to increase local production, but Vexar Prime's soil was too acidic. They needed human-designed fertilizers to make it work, and humans weren't selling anymore. How many dead? He asked his assistant. This week? 40,000 total? Nearly 2 million. Vextar closed his eyes. 2 million of his people, dead because he had laughed at a human ultimatum, dead because he thought humanity was weak. On Thex, Merchant Lord Thexal stood in his palace watching it being dismantled. His fortune was gone. His empire had collapsed. His 3,000 human slaves had been his most valuable asset, and they had vanished in a single night. He had tried to replace them with other species, but no one could do the work like humans did. Humans were adaptable. Humans were clever. Humans made things work even when they shouldn't. My lord, the creditors are at the gate, his assistant said. Let them wait. Thexal replied. He had no money to pay them anyway. His wealth had been built on human ingenuity, and he hadn't even realized it. Humans had optimized his factories. Humans had streamlined his supply chains. Humans had solved 1,000 small problems every day. Without them, everything fell apart. Actually, no, he said. Tell them I'll be down shortly. He picked up his ceremonial knife. He wouldn't give the creditors the satisfaction of taking what little he had left. Across the galaxy, 14 minor civilizations simply ceased to exist. Their economies had been too dependent on human trade routes. Their governments couldn't function without human manufactured components. Their people couldn't survive without human agricultural techniques. They sent desperate pleas to the Council for help. The Council had nothing to give. High Arbiter Krell stood before the Council and delivered his report. The economic damage is catastrophic. Galactic trade has decreased by 40%. 17 major corporations have declared bankruptcy. Food shortages affect 60 worlds. Medical supply shortages affect 100 more, and it's getting worse. What about military action? Asked a council member. We have millions of ships. Can't we force our way through? We've tried, Krell replied. We lost 10,000 ships in the first month. Every ship that enters the barrier zone dies. We can't break it. We can't bypass it. We can't do anything except go around it, and that's not sustainable. Then what do we do? Krell looked at the empty seat where Ambassador Deho used to sit. Humans had been offered a seat on the council 3 times. Each time the council had voted against it. Now that seat mocked them with its emptiness. We beg, Krell said. We apologize. We offer them everything they asked for. It's our only option. Councillor Vextar stood up. He looked terrible. His feathers were falling out from stress. His voice was hoarse from shouting orders that no one could obey. I will not beg to humans. I will not. Your world is starving, Krell shouted. Your people are dying in the streets. And you're worried about pride? The humans were right about us. We cared more about feeling superior than about doing what was right. Vextar sat down. He had nothing to say. Krell was right, and they both knew it. The council voted unanimously to contact Earth. They crafted a message that took 3 days to write. They apologized for 2 centuries of abuse. They recognized humanity's equal status. They offered full citizenship, full representation, and full protection under galactic law. They offered trade agreements favorable to Earth. They offered everything humans had asked for and more. They sent the message to Earth and waited for a response. Days passed. Then weeks. No response came. Admiral Sungmin patrolled the barrier in the quiet thunder. Every day fewer ships tried to cross. The aliens had learned. The hard way, but they had learned. His crew was relaxed now. The early days had been tense with constant battles. Now there was just silence and empty space. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Council, his communications officer reported. What do they want? They're begging for contact, sir. They say they've sent 17 messages to Earth with no response. They want to know if we're even receiving them. Sungmin smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. Of course we're receiving them. We've received every message they've sent. How many is it now? 3,412, sir. Good, delete this one too. Sir, some of them are from dying worlds. They're requesting medical supplies. Emergency food. They're describing mass casualties. Sungmin's smile faded. And when our colonies were dying, when our children were being taken as slaves, when we begged for help, what did they do? The communications officer was quiet for a moment. They laughed, sir. Exactly. Delete the message. On Earth, Ambassador Deho read the Council's latest message. It was message number 3,413. He had read them all. Some were angry demands. Some were desperate pleas. Some described horrors happening across the galaxy. He read them all and he deleted them all. President Bora entered his office. Any change? They're offering us 3 seats on the Council now, Deho said. And control of the Central Trade Authority. And 15 star systems as reparations. They're getting desperate. Are they offering enough? Deho thought about this. He thought about the 200 years of humiliation, the colonies burned, the children enslaved, the countless times he had stood before the Council and begged for basic dignity. No, he said, it's not enough. It will never be enough. They need to understand what they did. They need to feel what we felt. Words aren't enough. Laws aren't enough. They need to live with the consequences of their choices. How long do we make them wait? As long as it takes. This isn't about revenge, Bora. This is about making sure they never forget. Every species in the galaxy needs to learn that you cannot abuse people for 200 years and then just apologize when it becomes inconvenient. Meanwhile, inside human space, a golden age was beginning. Without the burden of galactic trade, without the need to follow alien laws, without the constant theft of their resources and ideas, humanity flourished. Science advanced rapidly, arts bloomed, population grew. The 40 billion humans alive when the barrier went up became 50 billion, then 60 billion. Dr. Jiwan led teams that made breakthrough after breakthrough. Without aliens stealing their research, human scientists shared knowledge freely. They solved fusion power completely. They cracked the secret of instant communication across any distance. They developed medicines that extended human life by centuries. Engineer Kyung-soo expanded the barrier network. He found ways to make it more efficient, more selective. Theoretically, they could now create barriers around individual ships, making them invulnerable to any attack. Humanity's defensive technology had become absolute, and all of this happened in silence. The galaxy had no idea what humans were building behind their wall. On the Council station, High Arbiter Krell met with the few remaining functional governments. The meeting was brief because there wasn't much to discuss. They had no solutions, no answers, no hope. We've been silent for 6 months, Krell said. The humans won't respond to any communication. They won't negotiate. They won't even acknowledge we exist. I'm beginning to think they never will. Then what? Asked a counselor. We just wait to die? We survive as best we can. We rebuild trade routes the long way around. We accept that the galaxy is smaller now. We learn to live with what we've done. Vextar, who had been quiet during the meeting, suddenly spoke. They want us to remember. That's what this is about. They don't want our apology because apologies are just words. They want us to live with the consequences. They want every species in the galaxy to spend the rest of their existence knowing that this happened because we were cruel. Krell nodded slowly. Yes, I think you're right. This is a lesson. A permanent lesson. Then we're doomed. Because this lesson is killing us, Krell had no response to that. It was simply true. On Earth, 30 days after the Council's formal apology, Ambassador Deho finally prepared a response. It was short. Just 3 words. But those 3 words would echo across the galaxy for generations. He sent the message and then sat back in his chair. President Bora read, 50 years had passed since the barrier appeared. An entire generation of aliens had grown up in a galaxy divided by humanity's wall. Children born after the silence knew only stories of the time before, when humans had been everywhere, exploited and ignored. Those children grew into adults in a galaxy forever changed. On Earth, Ambassador Deho was old now. His hair was white and his body ached in ways medicine couldn't quite fix. But his mind was sharp and his memory was long. He sat in a garden watching young people walk past. They had been born after the barrier went up. They had never known the humiliation their parents and grandparents endured. A young woman approached him. She was in her early 20s, wearing the formal robes of a council representative. Her name was Hana, and she would soon become humanity's voice to the galaxy, if humanity decided to speak again. "Ambassador Deho," she said, bowing respectfully. "President Subin asked me to bring you this." She handed him a tablet. Deho looked at the screen. It showed a message from the Galactic Council. It was the latest in an unbroken chain that had continued for 50 years. Every week, without fail, the Council sent a message. Always apologizing. Always begging. Always promising change. "Another one," Deho said.
Have you read it?
"Yes, sir.
They've ratified the Equality Charter.
Every species has the same rights now. No slavery. No exploitation. No second-class citizens. They did everything we asked for and more. And it only took them 50 years and near total collapse." Hana sat beside him on the bench. "Sir, if I may ask, are we ever going to respond? Are we ever going to lower the barrier?" Deho was quiet for a long moment. "Tell me, Hana, what do you know about the time before the silence?" "I've studied the history. I know our people were treated terribly. I know they laughed at us when we asked for help. I know they enslaved our children. Do you feel it, though? Do you understand it in your bones?" Hana hesitated. "I don't think I can. I've never been powerless. I've never been mocked for being human. I grew up in a humanity that the galaxy fears." "Exactly," Deho said. "And that's both a blessing and a problem. You see, Hana, the silence wasn't just about punishing them. It was about teaching the galaxy a lesson they could never forget. But if we wait too long, if we stay silent forever, the lesson changes. It becomes just cruelty, just revenge, and that's not who we want to be. So we should end the silence, soon but on our terms. Not theirs." On the other side of the barrier, the galaxy had indeed changed. The Council now enforced strict equality laws. Species that once owned slaves had freed them all. Species that once raided weaker worlds now faced severe punishment if they tried. The galaxy had learned that exploitation had consequences, but the learning had been painful. Billions had died in the first decade. Economies had collapsed. Civilizations had fallen. And through it all, humanity had remained silent, watching from behind their wall. High Arbiter Krell was long dead. The new Arbiter was a being named Venka, from a species that looked like living smoke. She had spent her entire career trying to repair the damage caused by her predecessors. She had written the Equality Charter. She had enforced the new laws. She had personally ensured that every species understood why these changes were necessary. But she had never heard a human voice, never received a response to the thousands of messages sent to Earth, never knew if humanity was even still alive behind the barrier. Today, she prepared to send another message. She did this every week, knowing she would receive no response. It was a ritual now. A reminder, an act of penance, Counselor Venka, her assistant said. "There's a ship at the barrier." Venka felt her form ripple with surprise. "An alien ship? Trying to cross?" "No, ma'am. A human ship. It's the first one we've detected in 50 years. Venka rushed to the observation deck. There on the screens was a sleek vessel unlike anything in current galactic records. It sat just outside the barrier, making no moves, sending no signals. "Just waiting. Are they hailing us?" Venka asked. "No, ma'am. They're just sitting there." Captain Jinwoo sat in the command chair of the vessel called the New Dawn. He was young for a ship captain, only 35, but he had trained his entire life for this moment. Behind his ship, still inside the barrier, waited a fleet of 1,000 vessels. The galaxy had no idea humanity had built so many ships. The galaxy had no idea about most of what humanity had accomplished in 50 years. "Status?" Jinwoo asked. 3,000 alien vessels have gathered on the other side, his officer reported. They're keeping their distance. No weapons charged. They look scared. They should be, Jinwoo said. "Open a channel to the council station." A moment later, Counselor Venka's face appeared on the screen. She looked shocked to see a human face after 50 years. "I am Captain Jinwoo of the Earth vessel New Dawn," he said. "I bring a message from President Subin of the United Human Nations." Venka's smoke-like form trembled. "We hear you, Captain. We have waited 50 years to hear from your people. Humanity has observed the changes in the galaxy. We have watched your Equality Charter take effect. We have monitored your enforcement of new laws. We have seen you try to become better than you were, And? Venka asked, hope creeping into her voice. And it's not enough. But it's a start. Jinwoo transmitted a file. These are humanity's terms for ending the silence. Read them carefully. You have 1 week to respond. If you agree, we will lower the barrier. If you don't, we will remain silent for another 50 years. Choose wisely. The screen went dark. Jinwoo's ship turned and slipped back through the barrier, disappearing as if it had never been there. Venka opened the file with shaking appendages. The terms were extensive. Humanity demanded 3 seats on the council with veto power. They demanded control of all trade routes they had originally claimed. They demanded reparations for 250 years of abuse. They demanded that the Equality Charter be made permanent and unchangeable. But the last term was the most significant. Every species in the galaxy must teach the silence in their schools. Forever. Every child must learn what happened when the galaxy abused humanity. Every child must learn the cost of arrogance. It's reasonable, Venka said aloud. After what we did, it's more than reasonable. The council convened an emergency session. Every species sent representatives. They read the terms. They debated, but the debate was brief. They all knew there was only one answer. They agreed to everything. 1 week later, Captain Jinwoo returned. This time, 1,000 human ships emerged from the barrier with him. The sight of so many advanced vessels shocked the gathered alien fleet. Humanity had not been idle in their isolation. Their ships were works of art and engineering that surpassed anything the galaxy had. The Council has agreed to all terms, Venka transmitted. We accept humanity's conditions. We welcome you back to the galaxy, Jinwoo nodded. Then it is time. On Earth, Dr. Ji-won, now an elderly woman, sat at the controls she had built 50 years ago. President Subin stood beside her, along with Ambassador Daeho and a room full of officials. Do it, Subin said. Ji-won pressed a button. Across 400 star systems, the quantum disruption field began to dissolve. It happened slowly, carefully over the course of 3 days, and as it dissolved, the galaxy saw what humanity had built. Cities that gleamed with technology beyond galactic understanding. Ships that moved through space in ways that defied known physics. Stations that generated power from the fabric of reality itself. Humanity had advanced more in 50 years of isolation than the galaxy had advanced in 1,000 years. The galaxy looked at this, and they understood. They had imprisoned themselves when they thought they were imprisoning humanity. They had fallen behind while thinking they were superior. The silence had been humanity's shield while they grew strong. Ambassador Hana, now officially humanity's representative, traveled to the council station. She was the first human to sit in the council chambers, since Daeho had walked out 50 years ago. The other counselors looked at her with a mixture of respect and fear. I speak for humanity, Hana said. We return to you, but we are not the same people who left. We are stronger. We are more advanced. We are united in ways you cannot imagine. We return not as supplicants, but as equals. Actually, as superiors in many ways. We understand, Venka said. And we are grateful you return at all. Humanity debated this for months, Hana continued. Some wanted to stay isolated forever. Some wanted to return and dominate, but we chose a different path. We choose to rejoin the galaxy and help it become better. Not because you deserve it, but because we refuse to become what you were. She stood and looked at each counselor in turn. But make no mistake. The barrier may be down, but we can raise it again in an instant. We can isolate any world, any system, any species that forgets the lessons of the silence. The quantum technology is ours alone. We are the only ones who can use it. That will never change. We accept these terms, Venka said. We accept human leadership in the council. We accept that you hold power we cannot match. We accept all of this because we deserve it. In a quiet archive on a distant world, an old being named Krell worked on a historical text. He was a descendant of the original High Arbiter, Krell, and he had spent his life documenting the 50 years of silence.